Breaking news, our merch just got a full revamp with all new designs and items. So if you want a little more random in your life, head over to clubrandom.com and check out the store. We've got premium hoodies, including our brand new quad hoodies with the updated logo, super soft t-shirts, super soft for men and women, and even tie-dye shirts. All merch is available exclusively at clubrandom.com. While you're there, catch up on recent episodes and grab some swag and bring a little random home. Once again, that's clubrandom.com. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform that lets you build something professional without turning your life into a tech project. You get a domain, a great-looking site, and SEO, so people can find you and pay you, which is always the goal. If you've been sitting on an idea, it's time to get up, open your laptop, and get started. Go to squarespace.com/clubrandom for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code CLUBRANDOM to save 10% off your first website or domain. Some guys in my world started looking into Mars men. Even one of my producers has, and he's not a guy who gets excited about things. What he told me is it's not like taking a shot of espresso and bouncing off the walls. It's more like the lights came back on. Workouts felt stronger, recovery got better, and he stopped needing a nap after doing basically nothing. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com.
I mean, Clinton supposedly spent time with him.
You gotta be kidding.
He supposedly spent time with him, right?
Whatever think of him
but
as
he's
all.
not. Would want to invest in doing that kind of work.
What are we gonna get out of it?
Okay, well, you're asking me to justify something for which I'm a
No,
little...
I'm not asking you to judge. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Beautiful place you have here. It is.
Well, it's not serious. Let's be real about it. And to me, that's what's great about it. I mean, this place was like a mess when I bought the house, and I was like, everybody said, tear it down. I was like, no, there's something about this place, just the crooked door. Look at that, you know.
Yeah, and
how could you tear that down?
Right, and I don't know, are we allowed to say that there's a body in the bathtub?
That is not a body, Mr. Huberman. That is Whitney Cummings.
That's right.
That's her.
I recognize her.
That is. She's got quite a body, but yeah, that's a very expensive. She gifted that to me. I'm very grateful. It's a couple $100,000 to make that a doll. They can make. She did it for a special. Electronic, what's the word? Version of her. I remember going to the World's Fair and they had back in the day, Lincoln, hello. It was kind of like that, but this is much more realistic.
It's very realistic. I'm friends with Whitney, and
oh wow.
I've walked in and there was Whitney in this Whitney, the Whitney.
Yeah, we put her in the
2.0.
bathtub. We had her sitting over there, but every time I walked in the room, I was like, oh fuck, what there's a person
It is a
here.
little shocking because it's so accurate.
It's
Minus
so
the hair.
accurate.
There's no hair on.
Well, I mean, we're close to having sex robots, aren't we? I mean, I'm not making that. There's a movie I just saw. It's pretty good called Companion.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's interesting. It's and Megan Fox did one about sex robots. There's going to be a lot of sex. Trust me, Sydney Sweeney is going to be playing a sex robot at some point. I just think that's inevitable. But and in the movies, this is of course a little bit in the future at least. The robot is indistinguishable physically from a real human, and it's just someone who is programmed to adore the person who bought her.
I know she said her, so this assumes that no one will have a male sex robot.
I think it's different in the woman's brain. I think that's why men want, the male fragile ego and everything probably wants, someone who adores them. Who doesn't really want to be adored?
I'm sure there are going to be guys out there that are going to be paid for the robot that insults them and all sorts of things. But that seems like an entirely different domain.
Yeah, those are the guys who now are having pay someone to dig their high heel into them.
Isn't that bizarre how some of Like when those
What is
cases
that?
have been unearthed, I don't know, something about ultra powerful people. Maybe they have never been told no, and they crave that. Odd.
Well,
I don't know.
this
I don't know. We're speculating here.
I on that score of men who like it in, shall we say, the reverse. Somebody once told me a story. It probably was a stripper in a club about this guy who had a really small dick. So his way to deal with it was he wanted the women to humiliate him, and apparently that's like a thing sometimes.
Whoa.
You know, well, it's like making a virtue out of it. Like at least it's getting attention.
Whoa.
You know,
Yeah, the AI relationships thing maybe is not as as edgy as what we're talking about now, but it does seem like it's already happening. People are having relationships with AI.
Exactly, but it's not physical yet.
As far as I know, I'm just hearing.
Well, it can't be. We don't have it yet.
Right. I'm guessing if it's physical, it's unilaterally physical. It seems that
You're in love with your phone. I mean, they've been doing this in Japan, and the movie Her was like almost 15 years ago.
It was like a crystal ball. Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, that's where it was going. But there was no. Remember, in the movie, he like hires a surrogate, like an actual woman, while he's on the phone with the thing, so he can like feel he's really having sex with the phone that he's in love with.
It's like taking all the functions of the human brain and compartmentalizing them into different actions and trying to interleave them. It's so bizarre.
I used to ask this in my act. Doesn't anybody just fuck anymore? I mean, are we that jaded that this, it just seems like people do, everybody has some crazy kink. I feel like I'm the last member of the land that time forgot. I don't do anything, I don't even fantasize about kinky shit. I don't, it's not like, ooh, I'm not fucking anybody in the ass, but I'm thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it.
What used to be vanilla is now, is not even on the page for. It seems, one thing. It seems like with these different generations, we hear like I'm Gen X, right? I'm 50, so we hear like Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, and this sort of thing. But it does seem that there was an entire generation that was raised so deeply in these short video, social media landscapes that they're almost like an experimental group, right?
Correct.
I mean, inadvertently, they're the experimental group, and nobody knows how this is going to work out. I did hear that there are data that, people won't hire kids of certain generations because their inability to have generate eye contact, have a conversation, because they're just so used to staring at a little box all the time. It's wild.
And I mean, we know how much this affects their sex life. They don't relate on a one-to-one basis. You see video of people, or you could go to a bar and they're all looking at their phone in the bar, even though the person is sitting right across from them.
Even people out on dates.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah.
That's common sense. Now, could it in the future turn out? I mean, anything's possible that isn't so deleterious. I don't think so, but what we do know is it's different. Mm-hmm. You can't deny that this is a difference, not just in degree, but in kind, mm-hmm. of something that we never saw before, where we're not relating directly, where we're putting some filter between everything. Look at a concert. I watched as much as I could of the Taylor Swift concert because Nikki Glaser made me. Nikki
Glaser
she did. Well, she's a giant Taylor Swift fan. Like everybody throughout the whole concert, anytime they cut to the crowd, they're all watching through their phones.
Wild. I
mean, everybody is like this.
What is that about? Because, I mean, that image can be, they could get that image after the show.
Exactly.
I don't know what that is. I guess it's to project oneself into the onstage experience somehow, but it's very bizarre.
What do you mean? You're here as the expert. What are you asking me for? I don't know. Tell me. This is what I want to know from you.
Yeah, well, there are some interesting studies. I think the one that's probably most relevant to everyone is this study that looked at people's ability to focus when their phone is off and turned over in front of them versus in their bag, turned off underneath or behind their chair.
Right.
Versus in another room, separate room.
Right.
And the interesting thing is that the ability to focus was the same essentially across those groups, but it took a lot of extra cognitive resource to work and to focus when the phone is on the table or even in a bag underneath or behind your chair.
How do they measure that?
They can measure how much, essentially how much energy people devote to focusing versus to generating new sort of creative thoughts into, flexible use of the information. And so it takes a lot more work to focus when your phone is in the room. That's just the simple takeaway. So when the phone's out of the room, you see what looks like a boost in cognitive performance. It's actually just getting people to baseline. And this is something that it reminds me of, David Goggins, the guy's a former Navy SEAL. He's always running around and, shouting and this kind of thing. And he's a super high performer in the physical domain, who's now actually studying to become a paramedic. And he said it perfectly. He said, it's never been easier nowadays to outperform your peers. But it's mostly a function now of what you don't do, right? Just putting your phone away gives you what looks like a cognitive boost, but it just puts you on par with all the generations before you that didn't have phones in the room. Right. So, to succeed now as a young person, it's much harder unless you're able to abstain from interactions with short form video mostly and the phone generally.
So speaking of outperforming your peers, I'm always interested in why something wins. I mean, and that's take Mr. Jesus Christ. I mean, there was many religions that were prevalent besides the old Greco-Roman religions, which were kind of dying out at his time in the Mediterranean. It wasn't just Christianity. Why did that one win? Why did MySpace go away? And Facebook,
Is MySpace the Heaven's Gate of cult religion? Now I'm really dating myself. Heaven's Gate, I think it was I think they castrated themselves, shaved their heads and wore
the Heaven's Gate cult.
The Heaven's Gate cult. Right. That was sort of the MySpace of cults. It's self-destructed.
Well, in the cult world, that's when you win, is when you kill yourself, I think.
Yeah, that's right, Branch Street,
I was going to say,
Jamestown. Yeah.
In the field of medical advice, so crowded, what is your own assessment of why you became prima inter pares in this field? What is it? Now, I think you're great, so I'm not going to prejudice the jury. I mean, I listen to you, and I feel like it's great information delivered in a way I can understand. But what is your thing? Because this is a very, very crowded field. I mean, half this country is too poor to be able to even worry about their health and what they eat. And the other half are fucking paranoids. Maybe that's because I live in LA.
No, I think...
We're just doing fucking cold plunges and they're tanning
Peptides,
their asshole. Remember that one? Tucker Carlson, wasn't he tanning his asshole?
Was he?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
There was taint tanning. He was saying that, I'm pretty sure it was Tucker Carlson, who was yes, you gotta get sunlight on your taint. You didn't remember? You didn't say
I remember that fad. I didn't realize Tucker was associated with that.
I
think of him now as the nicotine guy. He's really bullish on nicotine, which we can also talk about.
And hating Jews. It's tanning your taint or hating Jews. This guy is, I'm telling you, a little all over the map.
He's definitely taken a turn in.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
He's taken a turn for sure.
Really, why you?
Yeah,
why you?
Well, thanks for the kind words. I'll say, some of it was a matter of circumstance. We launched the podcast during the pandemic, and there was a lot of discussion about vaccines, right? And that's obviously where the major debate was, besides the lockdown issue.
Yep.
And I decided at the time, in part because Stanford had a very strict rule that we weren't supposed to talk about vaccines publicly, because early in the pandemic, if you recall, there were documents, Word documents circulating on the internet, people claiming to be affiliated with certain universities and having protocols for dealing with COVID. And, universities, including Stanford, said, listen, we need virologists and public health experts to talk about this or no one else. So on the podcast, I chose to talk about all the things that were universal: how to manage your sleep, how to keep your anxiety down during the lockdowns as best you could, how to maintain some level of physical fitness if you couldn't, leave your house. And then I just started teaching. And I think in large part it was because I wasn't selling a book. I didn't have a podcast. I was just giving away information. I will say also, if you look at a lot, not all, but a lot of the top podcasters, including yourself, including Rogan, Lex Friedman, and there are others, Jocko Willink, for instance, most of them did something else very well first. They were credentialed someplace else, right? Lex is, most people don't realize this, Lex is a PhD, right? He's very versed in computer science and artificial intelligence and these kinds of things. Joe obviously had a prior career. You had a prior career, very successful, in addition to the other things you're doing. I was running a lab at Stanford up until a few years ago. Now I still teach at Stanford, but I shut my lab down because of the podcast. So what you find is that often the most successful podcasts are from people that, sure, entered the field at a certain time, and there were fewer people in the podcast game then, but who also were very fluent in a particular subject and were ready to bring that to the world. So it wasn't like, I want to be a podcaster. It was, I love science, I love learning and teaching. I have an interest in health. I have a long-standing interest in health and fitness in addition to my neuroscience background. So I'm going to talk about all of that. And I think the connections that one has, like your colleagues, like the people that I bring on my podcast are, I'm honored to say, and so privileged to have the opportunity. These are the top neurosurgeon, chair of neurosurgery at UCSF, Eddie Chang, Robert Malenka, the expert in dopamine, Anna Lemke, the expert in addiction medicine, Sean Mackey, the expert in pain medicine, and on and on. And, we include other people, creatives, David Cho, Rick Rubin, et cetera. But to be able to put those people in front of the world was not really happening before. The only person who had really done it before was Charlie Rose, and he had taken a pretty swift exit in the previous years. I never met him, but that's where you saw the neuroscience series.
He was great at neuroscience, bad at coming out of the bedroom with a bathrobe on.
I don't know what the circumstances were.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Coming out of the bedroom with a bathrobe on.
Well, so I think that was it. And then I think I like to think it's also because, I do the things I talk about, right? I get morning sunlight. I've long been interested in resistance training, and I believe, of course, in modern medicine, but I also believe that lifestyle factors and the things we can control fundamentally shape how healthy or unhealthy we are and how many medications we need or don't need.
Look, about 2003, I switched from Western medicine, not that I abandoned it, because of course Western medicine is wonderful in many ways.
Sure.
But from, but to a much more holistic approach, meaning preventative. And I feel like I got with a doctor I respect very much, who I think knows a great deal. We don't agree on everything. And of course, you also need an MD. But I feel like until that point in my life, I did not really understand how the body worked. I read different books. I don't want to go through the whole holistic Bible, but they more are of the notion that there is really only one disease, which is cellular destruction. And it has two main causes. One is deficiency of nutrients, and the other is toxicity getting into the cell. And we label things a million ways. There's a million names for many diseases, but it all comes down to not just all that, because I think genetics is really important.
Yeah, some people who have Huntington's, for instance, they could be doing everything right and still be eventually get seriously ill. Although doing as many things as possible right in terms of lifestyle will greatly extend their lifespan and health span. There's no question.
But do you subscribe, would you say that is your overarching theory also, that it's all about the cells, winning the battle on the molecular level, and our cells? I mean, there's so much in society that is, fatigue, like chronic fatigue, these kind of things, and irritable bowel syndrome, and even allergies, maybe even asthma. Just this stuff that says it's because we're not treating our cells right. They're getting too much toxicity, and they are deprived of nutrients because what they're being given is processed food, sugar, corn, fungus. Love to get into fungus with you. I'm a big fungus person.
We can talk about psilocybin.
Not that kind of, but that's fungus too. I used to do it. But no, just how harmful fungus is and how much we always go to germ theory. It's always the bacteria. And sometimes it's the fungus. I mean, fungus is everywhere.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so I absolutely subscribe to the idea that when cells get sick, organs get sick. When organs get sick, you get systemic breakdown eventually. I think that when you talk about toxicity, I think it's very clear that you can have, for instance, toxicity from too many calories, but this is
affluent malnutrition.
That's right.
They call it.
Too many calories, but not enough micronutrients, perhaps, right? Or just too many calories. Energy load toxicity.
And when you don't get the right nutrients, even though you're eating more food, your body is still asking for those nutrients. Which is why you get fat, because you're eating more food, but you're not getting what the body needs, so it wants more.
I think that there are many things that are making Americans and others sick, including lack of physical exercise and so on. But I think at least two of the important ones that aren't discussed enough are being divorced from our natural circadian schedule. So you want bright days. We've talked about this before, but I'll just briefly reiterate. Bright days, meaning sunlight in the morning, bright days, as best you can, getting sunlight through a window. There's a recent study showing that if you work near a window, it actually can help with blood glucose management. And dark nights. And, for some people, going to bed late and waking up later is best for them. For other people, waking up early and going to bed earlier is best for them. People have to figure out what's ideal for them.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there are some hardcore people who insist that the healing only happens between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
No, that's nonsense.
Thank you.
That's nonsense.
Thank you, sir.
Because
2 p.m., 2 a.m. is when I'm just getting to sleep.
Okay, so you're a night owl. And there are what we call chronotypes. And some people do best on a late to bed, late waking up schedule. And nonetheless, getting bright light, ideally from sunlight in your eyes in the first hour after waking.
I listen to you on that, and the first thing I do is go over to the window, and it's always like, oh, I feel like a vampire, because but I force myself to, open my eyes to that.
Great.
And, and also I'm very, very aware that light in the eye at night, it's the worst thing for you. It wakes up the pineal gland, right? This podcast is sponsored by Squarespace. We're all supposed to have a brand now, whether we ask for that or not. And if you're going to exist online, you might as well look like you know what you're doing. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform that lets you build something professional without turning your life into a tech project. You get a domain, a great-looking site, tools to offer services, take payments, send emails, everything in one place, which is rare and, frankly, underrated. The design is the best part. Their templates are actually good, and if you don't want to start from scratch, Blueprint AI builds a customized site for you based on what you do and what you want. No coding, no panic, no late-night Googling. And if you're running a business, Squarespace handles scheduling, invoices, analytics, and SEO, so people can find you and pay you, which is always the goal. If you've been sitting on an idea, it's time to get up, open your laptop, and get started. Go to squarespace.com/clubrandom for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code CLUBRANDOM to save 10% off your first website or domain. You ever notice how the older you get, the more your doctor starts saying things like, let's just keep an eye on that? Well, that's not comforting. That's a warning with a polite tone, and high blood pressure is one of those things. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly does damage while you're busy pretending everything's fine. We've all got people in our life dealing with it, and it's one of those things you don't think about until suddenly you do. That's why it's time to start paying attention to 120 Life. It's a once-a-day drink designed to support healthy blood pressure. Not a pill, not a stimulant, not some trendy miracle nonsense, just a functional drink made from a blend of superfruit juices, and it actually tastes good, which already puts it ahead of most healthy things. The best part is that it easily fits into your routine. You just drink it daily, check your numbers with a home monitor, and see where you're at. A lot of people notice changes in a couple of weeks, which is why it's gotten so popular. And by the way, hundreds of doctors are recommending it now. Not influencers, actual doctors. Always a good sign. Look, by March, everybody's already abandoned their New Year's resolutions, but your blood pressure didn't get the memo. Don't wait until next month. Nothing to lose except higher blood pressure numbers. Go to 120life.com and use my code RANDOM for 20% off. Use code RANDOM today. These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Yeah, so your pineal gland makes melatonin, which makes you sleepy and makes you fall asleep. Light inhibits melatonin,
Right.
light reaching the eyes specifically. I should point out that it's clear that some people can tolerate screen light and fall asleep with no problem. But what bright light does in the morning is it increases cortisol, which we know is a stress hormone. But in the morning, you want your cortisol high. This is the foundation of health, to have your morning cortisol high, yes, high, and then to have it taper off into the afternoon and evening. This is true for men, for women, perimenopausal, menopausal, pregnant women, kids, everybody. It's called the healthy cortisol curve. And if that curve flattens, meaning if it's not a big enough peak in your morning, whatever time that happens to be, and if you have too much cortisol in the evening, you're going to have problems with sleep. You're also going to have problems with blood sugar regulation, because cortisol has been labeled a stress hormone, but we need to think about cortisol as a glucose, as an energy mobilizing hormone. So it turns out that even if you can sleep just fine after being around a bunch of bright lights at night, it will elevate your morning blood glucose. Now, is that going to make you pre-diabetic or diabetic? Over time, it actually might.
Really?
But kids nowadays, they've done a beautiful experiment where they had kids sleep in a room with 100 lux, that's very dim, 100 lux light overhead, eyes closed, and they saw significantly elevated morning blood glucose levels. So dimming the lights at night is important. Now, there's a lot's been said about blue light, and for some people wearing blue blockers can be helpful, et cetera, but just dimming the lights. This environment that we're in here is actually quite dim. It's bright enough for us to see each other, but this environment is not nearly bright enough for the morning, what we need in the morning to spike cortisol, which is what we want, but it's plenty bright to spike cortisol at, say, an hour before sleep. So just in the first hour, make the first hour of your day as bright as possible, ideally from sunlight. Make the last hour of your day as dim or as dark as safely you can.
I do start to lower the lights, but there's only so much you can do.
Sure.
But when I go to bed, I cover up all these little things. Everything in fucking America now has to have a little fucking stupid light that you don't need. I cover them all, like with like washcloths. I'll put things all over that.
I bring duct tape and I'll cover a little
Exactly.
bits. Or get a great a soft eye mask is one of the best investments.
I don't like that because I feel it and it's onerous, but I have blackout curtains. No, when I go to sleep at night, it is as black as Stephen Miller's heart. It is black in there. I'm telling you, when I open my eyes or close them, I see the same thing.
Great.
That's dark.
Great.
You know what's stupid? And I don't mean to knock this product. I'm wearing it right now, these rings that I'm sure you're very into.
I wear a Whoop band, or I measure my sleep with an 8 Sleep, the cooling mattress.
Okay, well, this is the same idea. And I've just started it up.
And it blinks.
I had to, you know what I did? And by the way, I was
That's why I don't wear one of those. That's why I measure my sleep with my...
I figured it out, and I'm gonna give you... Here's a life hack, you life fucking hackers. Okay, so yes, it blinks at night. It's supposed to be about your health, and it does the one thing you're not supposed to do, which is have light on when you're sleeping. Bright green light or yellow light. Okay, so what I did was I took a black surgical glove, like thin rubber gloves. We gave out a zillion of them during COVID, and now they're polluting the entire country and world. So great on that one. But I just cut off a little piece of it, and I put it on as a fucking Oura Ring cozy at night, and then it blocks it off. So there's your life hack for all the people who wrote in like I did and said, this is so silly. We're trying to do our health here.
I know. So I think the emergent theme in our conversation already today is technologies that we use to improve convenience or improve our health inevitably have some sort of side effects that we run up against.
Everything does.
Yeah, it's true. So this is wild. So the long wavelength light, red light, infrared light, et cetera, that's the heat from the sun that you feel. It's part of that heat that you said. That long wavelength light is not the light that burns your skin. It's not the wavelength of light. And it was present in incandescent bulbs. So incandescents are, even if you see a white incandescent bulb, it's got short wavelengths, so it's got blue, it's got green, it's got yellows, all the way out to red, and in some cases even infrared. That infrared and red, we'll just call it long wavelengths. Believe it or not, beautiful data on this from Glenn Jeffrey's lab, University College London. It can go into and through your body, and it actually helps, this is a loose term as I'm using it, charge your mitochondria. The mitochondria, there's water in that area, and the water absorbs the red light. If you've ever gone swimming, you've gone down, snorkeling or something below a certain depth, you lose the reds, okay, because the reds get absorbed.
Huh.
So your mitochondria function better, you increase ATP production, your metabolism increases in the presence of long wavelength light to the skin. This study has been done. Shine long wavelength light on somebody, watch blood glucose levels in a blood glucose test, and it's blunted. Now, the LED lights that are commonly used now, or most everywhere, they are truncated so that it's all short wavelength and medium wavelength light. And that short wavelength light, in the absence of long wavelength light, has been shown to damage the mitochondria. There's a kind of a niche group online, different from the butthole sunners, so that are very bullish about this idea that the switch from incandescents to LEDs, and not just screens, but general lighting, is causing disruptions in mitochondrial function. This used to be considered crazy. This was like chemtrail crazy, right? But now we're starting to see from animal studies and human studies from Glenn Jeffrey and others that people's vision gets better when they get in front of an incandescent bulb once a day. If they get sunlight, which also has long wavelength light, your vision improves because of improvements in mitochondria. You can, again, better blood glucose regulation. This study just came out, eating near a window or working near a window improves blood glucose regulation. So, I'm not paranoid. I have LEDs in my home, right? But if you can get outside and get some long wavelength light from the sun without getting a burn, that's the trick, right?
I do it every day.
You don't watch too much UV. Yeah,
Right.
And you look extremely healthy. I'm not just saying that. I'm
Well.
up close, so I'd be in a position to gauge, right?
Oh, finish your thought.
Well,
Doc.
it's absolutely true that we
I owe it all to clean living.
Right. So I don't want to say that short wavelength light is poison. That's not quite right. It's short wavelength light in the absence of long wavelength light. And if you had asked me about this, 8, 10 years ago, I'd say, my colleagues in the sleep lab at Stanford, one of the preeminent sleep labs in the world, they're really big on morning sunlight, afternoon sunlight. That's actually where I learned it from the sleep biologists at Stanford first. But you start to look at our environment is becoming very short wavelength rich, long wavelength diminished. We're having darker mornings, people straight onto the phone. In the evening, it's too bright. And then we could make it generational and say this younger generation that seems to really be struggling, let's set aside the content they're looking at, right? Just what's actually on those screens. It may be that we've made them sick. And so while I am a fan of modern medicine.
The light itself.
What's that?
It's the light itself, is what you're saying.
I'm saying it's the light itself and
it's
the timing
such an
of light.
important message that it's not just the fact that it's a bunch of stupid TikToks.
Well, it's that too.
That are poisoning your mind. It's the light itself. Even if it was transmitting the smartest, wisest messages throughout history, the light itself.
The light itself.
It's just not natural.
That's right. And incandescent bulbs and firelight and candlelight, all of these things were very healthy for us. And I actually think it's hard now to get incandescents. There's some people think it's illegal. They're just very hard to get. They are less energy efficient than LEDs.
Yes.
But when you talk about going to the hotel and everything's like this bright, intense blue, when was the last time someone had to change an LED bulb?
Right.
You never have to do that, right? So it's like idiot proof and it's power efficient, but there's always a cost on the back end.
There's always.
And you mentioned TikTok, but you as much as I'm a fan of Instagram, I teach on Instagram and YouTube, they've really migrated towards shorter content. They promote 3-minute or shorter reels on Instagram. They tell you if it's longer than that, it's not going to get shared as broadly. I mean, all of the platforms have shifted towards shorter video. At the same time, longer audio is still on the rise.
I've said this many times. I don't understand the American public. Their attention span seems to be 8 seconds or 3 hours. If I do a podcast that's less than 90 minutes, they feel very cheated. And yet, what you're talking about, that seems also prevalent in our culture, that people have no attention span at all. And you got to get it in there in 2 minutes or less, or just forget about it.
It's wild.
What do you make of that? Is that a generational thing?
No, I think it's a fundamental difference between the auditory system and the visual system, where the visual system can tolerate a lot of fast updating. But if you had to hear something different every 90 seconds or every 3 minutes even, it would be chaotic. You just feel like, this is crazy.
That's interesting.
This is crazy. I mean, that's like shorter than a Ramones song. Like
it's how we're taking it in.
Exactly.
Right, visually, because we're so used to movies for I don't know how many decades now, quick cutting, and just they could subliminal advertising. Remember when that was a thing?
Oh yeah.
It would be you wouldn't even notice. the controversy was they put a skull and crossbones subliminally into cigarette ads because the theory was people really want to die.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I am absolutely serious.
Whoa.
Like they subliminally put a skull and crossbones in there.
Whoa.
There was.
I would have thought they would have done the opposite.
Right. No.
You know, put it like a beating heart. There's like a robust beating heart, or
that's how evil they are.
Nude woman or something like that.
No, that's how fucked up we are. But
wow.
When you said like a few years ago, it was like chemtrail level conspiracy theory. That's why I get a little nervous when people say, "Oh, the ultimate expert in." I'm sure they are.
Sure.
But you know what? Science, there's no final answer. I mean, there are,
Sure.
but it takes time, like evolution. When it first came out, people didn't just sign on. It had to go through the testing period. Okay, we're past that. And we're past that with global warming, too.
I was thinking about, Tucker would argue different,
yes,
right?
okay, we're past that.
Right.
We can argue about what to do about it, but we're past the, humans aren't causing it. Yes, they are, and, maybe that's whatever, But, this idea.
Well, it's interesting. It seems like there's bipartisan support for the idea that we're contaminating water sources and food sources. I guess more closely to what you just raised, it's beyond me why artificial lighting environments might be damaging us in some way, and certain medications like antibiotics can be beneficial. Like we are living in the land, and with respect to health, we do seem to be living in the land of whatever expert, certainly is not how I try and pitch things, but whatever expert is speaking to us seems to think that the things they're talking about are the only things that are important. Like, I'm not saying it's only light. I'm saying light is foundational. Circadian biology is foundational. Cortisol rhythms are foundational. Nutrients in food, not excess calories, getting enough micronutrients. But when you look online, what you find is that the people couch themselves as it's all sunlight or it's all food. And I think this is what's really damaged the MAHA movement, frankly, because I think most people across the board would say, okay, getting food additives out and reducing processed foods, surely that's a great thing. But then the vaccine debate, for instance. Actually, I have an update on the vaccine piece that I spoke to NIH director today to get you an update, because last time when I was on your show, we talked about it. And it's about these mRNA vaccines.
Oh, yeah.
Because I said, and I still think, that to cancel the research for mRNA vaccines for cancer would be utterly foolish. I think that's a 3-neuron decision.
Agreed.
Okay. So I talked to Jay, and he assured me,
Jay
Bhattacharya, director of NIH, and actually currently also director of CDC.
Let's give people some background who during COVID, and I was one of the people who took a lot of shit during COVID. I feel very vindicated, by the way. But I'm sure not nearly as much as the people who are in charge of health now. And Jay Bhattacharya was one of those people who was thrown off Twitter or wherever because, like he's a nut, because he had an alternative view of how we were handling COVID.
He was largely opposed to lockdowns at certain phases. I know this because he's my colleague at Stanford, and
he was right. We didn't treat it overarchingly. We just didn't treat it the right way, which was to protect the most vulnerable population, but let society go on, because it wasn't the bubonic plague. It killed mostly very old people and obese people. I know that's politically incorrect to say. It's just the truth. We didn't need to overreact the way we did. We didn't need to spend more money than we did on World War II.
Is that right?
Yes, it's right.
Wow.
Well, of course, we told everybody to go to your room and hide under your bed, and we'll make up your salary. Where do you think we got that money? Where we always get it, out of thin air. That's going to come home to roost, and that's going to affect your health.
Yeah, well, the mental health
is pot bad
in the
for
lockdown.
You?
Before we talk about vaccines,
because it makes you do this.
I have an update for you on cannabis as well.
I don't know what this is, but what is it?
So the mRNA vaccine update is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who now is also acting director of the CDC, by the way. He's juggling both roles.
And a smart guy.
And a very smart guy, and a very and somebody who listens. I'm not formally associated with MAHA, despite what you might read out there. I'm not formally associated with any political group. I'm neither a double hater nor a double lover when it comes to politics. I am an issue by issue person.
That's me in politics.
Great. Okay. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you. So he assured me that his words, that the NIH funding for mRNA vaccine research for oncology for cancer has not been cut. What was cut, he said, his words, it was the $500 million put towards mRNA vaccines for upper respiratory illnesses that was set aside from Project Warp Speed, which people forget was a Trump initiative. I'm not trying to, what do the kids say, glaze or glow up or what? I'm not trying to, but we should remember that was part of the Trump administration.
Absolutely.
And I think that the mRNA vaccines, the label has caused a lot of people to say, I don't want anything to do with those. But I just had an oncologist on my podcast. The potential to eradicate cancers using technologies like those or others like CRISPR is so exciting. And the way this is going to work is not by testing on humans. It's going to be by harvesting a T cell.
Let's stop on CRISPR, because I remember first seeing it on 60 Minutes. Gene splicing, right?
It's gene editing.
Gene editing.
So you can actually go in and add genes and modify genes. A Nobel Prize was given.
Why is it called CRISPR?
The CRISPR-Cas system is an enzyme system that can get and insert and cut and repair DNA at specific locations.
Okay. But yes, I've been hearing about CRISPR ever since that 60 Minutes report, but that was like 7 or 8 years ago. I feel like, hey, I'm 70 now. Where's CRISPR when I need it?
So CRISPR is being used.
I'm not saying I need it, but I'm saying I'd like it.
CRISPR has been used to successfully treat certain childhood cancers. CRISPR, now, I should say that's by taking cells, modifying their genes, and reinserting those cells, which works very well in the immune system.
But it's not a cure for cancer.
Well, it holds...
Sometimes it is.
It holds the potential to cure many forms of cancer. So cancers are all generally...
And it's done it. Sometimes, right?
It
Already?
has, sure, yeah. I mean, it's not in widespread use because there are a lot of ethical issues. I will tell you, there was a guy, he actually trained as a postdoc at the same time as I did in the United States, then went to China. He made CRISPR-modified babies. Okay, this is a well-known, yes, he announced at a meeting that he had taken some kids from IVF. The report was that the father was HIV positive. He modified the receptor for HIV in these embryos, and 2 kids were born with modified genomes. Now, here's the twist.
From what womb?
They were inserted into the guy's wife, I believe. So they took the eggs, her egg, his sperm, modified the embryos once the embryos were in a dish using CRISPR.
She carried.
So targeting a specific gene. Right? I should say, when people get really worried about genetic selection, when people partner select, they're genetic selecting. Right? When they go, oh, that person's attractive or successful or kind or whatever.
But she carried it to term and they had a baby shower.
2 babies. Yeah, 2 babies.
I'm not asking about
Chinese
the
baby shower.
I want to know about the shower.
Yeah, Chinese baby shower. I don't know what that looks like.
Is it different when
I imagine it is. And these babies were born. Now, here's why it's controversial. First of all, he didn't get any approval from the International Ethics Committee. There is no International Ethics Committee.
Yeah.
There was no International Ethics Committee at that time.
International Ethics.
And there is rumor that this HIV receptor may actually not just confer some susceptibility or resistance to HIV, but that it also might be involved in brain circuits involved in memory. So the story became that he used CRISPR to generate these, super babies or something like that. The Chinese government claims that he was punished. We don't know if he was punished by being put in jail or given a laboratory. We don't know. It's all very mysterious and cloaked. But when this happened, the international community paused, and it was very unclear. I was watching this very closely. It was very unclear for a few moments whether or not he would be given a Nobel Prize or whether or not he would be thrown into a cell. The world didn't know how to deal with this because he was way ahead of the curve. I guarantee that there are countries now where people are using CRISPR on embryos. I'm certain it is, has serious ethical concerns. It is not allowed in the United States, but it's coming. In fact, you can deep sequence embryos now from IVF, and you can isolate the embryos that you think have the fewest disease genes or that you think have the most genes that would confer whatever traits that you...
Don't you think we're always late on getting to some of these things? I know from a friend who had cancer that he had to go to Mexico to do the thing where they take the stem cells out and put it back in your body.
Yeah.
And it worked, by the way.
Yeah,
Why do we have to go to Mexico to do that?
Our regulatory bodies here are much stricter on certain things than anywhere else.
But I mean, if you're dying, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, well, there's this weird inverse stringency. So when it comes to like sunscreen, we'll talk about sunscreen, for instance, or food additives. Europe bans certain things that we allow very readily here.
Formaldehyde.
Also, yeah, and certain pesticides. And in Europe, alcohol, no diss, is classified as a
no diss.
World Health Organization classifies it as a class 1 carcinogen. Do as you like, but know what you're doing. Here, we don't classify it as a carcinogen, even though we know it increases cancer risk. You're fine. You're healthy in other ways.
I wasn't freaking out about it.
Right. Yeah, you're very calm.
You know that feeling when you're at the gym doing the exact same routine you've done for years, and somehow 2 miles on the treadmill feels like you're training for the Olympics? Well, nothing's wrong exactly. You're not sick. You're not tired, but bending down to tie your shoe has somehow become an event. Nobody tells you about that part of getting older. There's no pamphlet. One day you're fine, the next your body's just running on low battery mode. So some guys in my world started looking into Mars men. Even one of my producers has, and he's not a guy who gets excited about things. What he told me is it's not like taking a shot of espresso and bouncing off the walls. It's more like the lights came back on. Workouts felt stronger, recovery got better, and he stopped needing a nap after doing basically nothing. Here's the science part, and I'll keep it short because I know you didn't come here for the lecture. Apparently, there's a protein in your body that binds to your testosterone and basically puts it in witness protection. Mars Men is designed to help free that up naturally. We're talking zinc, vitamin D, boron, no needles, no weird lab stuff, nothing synthetic. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you.
But on the other side, when you think about which drugs we allow doctors to provide or what's allowed over the counter, here there's a lot more stringency. For instance, right now there's a huge battle over peptides, which I'm happy to talk about because the GLPs are so popular, which are peptides.
What are peptides?
Peptides are small chains of amino acids that have a biological function. Insulin's a peptide. GLP-1 is a peptide. You make these things naturally, but these can be synthesized and put into the body, and they can have an effect. And typically when a drug, like a GLP-1 drug, like Ozempic, Mounjaro, or the big one that's coming, this is going to be $1 trillion drug, and it has huge implications for the sorts of things you and I think about, the interaction between politics and health, is retatrutide. It's a GLP-3, meaning it hits the GLP receptor, GIP, and glucagon. It can cause up to 1/3 of loss in body weight and some degree of muscle sparing. Some. People should still exercise. Now, Eli Lilly holds the patent. It went through phase 3 very successfully. Eli Lilly does not want compounding pharmacies selling retatrutide. Why? Because it's far cheaper. And we had this recent thing where Trump argued for lower drug prices, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the drug companies were like, oh yeah, sure, let's just lower drug prices? No. It was a deal, right? I won't say how I know this, but it was a deal whereby the administration kind of did a wink nod that drugs were going to pass more quickly through R&D to market. So they're going to make up the cost differential on the research and development end, right? Less money invested in research and development, less time to market, and happy to lower prices. This is my understanding. Someone will probably tell me I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. Now, Eli Lilly wants to protect the patent for retatrutide, but I'll tell you, in Los Angeles County right now, there are a lot of people, mostly people that get in front of cameras, taking retatrutide because it works so spectacularly well at 1/5 of the prescribed dose or the recommended dose from these trials, and at 1/10 of the price if you get it from a compounding pharmacy. Now, compounding pharmacies aren't supposed to make it, but this is another area where the FDA would like them to not do it, but it's pseudo-regulated. The gray market, as I'm referring to it, is when people can buy this stuff online for research purposes only, okay? And then the black market, people refer to as Chinese peptides, which are peptides that probably don't contain what you think they do, and there's very little stringency, and you have to really worry about contamination. It's a little unfair to China, I want to be clear. Like, these could be coming from Belarus for all I know. I mean, they could be coming from anywhere, but people refer to them as Chinese peptides, which is not fair. We should just call them black market peptides. So the FDA would like to protect its relationship to pharma. Pharma wants to protect the patents for drugs where there's a lot of money. Retatrutide stands to be $1 trillion drug. So here's the weird split. I want to make sure I close the hatch on the FDA piece. Right now, the key is to prevent harm, right? We don't want people taking black market or gray market peptides that could hurt them. At the same time, these compounding pharmacies have made many drugs, not just GLPs, but many drugs much more affordable to people in a landscape that I don't even have to justify, right? People are really struggling for healthcare, or for self-directed healthcare. Are peptides the be-all, end-all? Well, no, not necessarily. Lifestyle factors and drugs in some cases, or lifestyle factors and other things. But the key here is that if a drug stands to make a company a lot of money, then there's an incentive to regulate this stuff. So we're in this weird landscape where I really think you have two populations of slightly overlapping populations of people. You have people that their level of stringency is, if it's not FDA approved from a traditional company, from pharma, multiple randomized controlled trials, I don't want to take it. I'm not putting it anywhere near my family or anyone I know. And then you have a separate category of people, which is quite large, who say the fact that something is from pharma, the fact that it's associated with the FDA is the major reason why they do want to take something. And this is where I think I'm so tired of looking at traditional media coverage of like peptides, is where they throw it out like a dog's breakfast of all these different things, lump it and just say peptides don't do anything. Really? Insulin doesn't do anything for a diabetic? Really? The GLPs don't do anything? The root of all of this is control of the patent and financial pipeline, which is not to say that I can't relate. I mean, Lilly, I have no stock in Lilly. Kind of wish I did. I mean, it's over $1,000 right now. It was a couple $100 a few years ago. Lilly invested hundreds of millions of dollars. They stand to make trillions of dollars. It makes every bit of sense why they would try and shut down the retatrutide compounding.
It's so funny that it's so similar to politics, which is you can't trust either half fully. When the argument is like peptides are all bad,
right?
It's like Trump is all evil, or the Democrats are all evil, and it's like you have to read both sides because nobody tells you the full truth. They only want to forward their narrative, and it sounds like it's the same thing in medicine as it is in politics.
It is. I mean, as a research scientist and friends with many, many physician scientists and physicians, I do think, at least at Stanford, all physicians and scientists, I do believe, want to solve problems correctly and provide good for the world.
Stanford seems like it's a super woke place.
No.
Stanford?
We have Hoover. We have the Hoover folks, right? I mean, that's like a libertarian think tank, basically.
Oh, is that?
Connie Rice runs it, I believe.
Is that at Stanford?
Yeah, it's at Stanford. The big tower. The tower.
I'm not.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm not that familiar with the campus.
No, I would say Stanford, on balance, is very balanced.
Because I read somewhere, like this is going back, sort of peak woke time 5 years ago or something, that they had 10,000 administrators.
It's a big place. It's got its own zip code,
Okay, but it just seems like that's all. We're not talking about professors, and we're not talking about students. We're talking about bureaucrats, kind of.
But there is a hospital, a children's hospital. I mean, it's one of the most modern. And look,
right, maybe again,
I have this podcast.
I don't trust anything until I get both sides of the story.
Sure.
I'm just saying I read that, and that I concede right away. That is forwarding somebody's narrative that elite colleges are out of control, which, by the way, I do think there is absolute truth in that. What's the other side of it? Well, there's another side of it, too.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear you tell me.
Yes.
Maybe we need 10,000. Maybe they do need 10,000 administrators at Stanford.
Well, with the caveat that I can already hear the voices saying, he's just trying to protect his job. Look, I'm tenured. Jay kept his job during the pandemic.
You're a celebrity now. You can't be fired.
Yeah, I mean, I have this other gig, so I'm comfortable.
No, you can't be fired.
So, but I will tell you, I'll give you the positives, I'll give you the negatives. I'll be real direct with you. I've been many places in my academic career, and I will tell you that while there are many other excellent places, there are very, very few, if any, places in the world where you find people who are just absolutely focused on bringing their science, which often impacts healthcare, to the next level with the utmost degree of rigor. My colleagues are amazing. I'm telling you. I mean, I've got colleagues like Carl Deisseroth who developed ways to image and modify cellular activity across the board. Everything from humans, rat, cat, monkey, bat for research purposes. People who were blind are seeing again as a consequence of that work. I've got colleagues building artificial retinas. I've got colleagues who are figuring out in the psychology department that are really parsing this notion of like Ali Crum mindsets, which is a setting for the mind, how to navigate stress, not just thinking that stress is going to dissolve you into a puddle of tears, but how to harness stress into performance. She's a D1 athlete, clinical psychologist, and runs a major research lab, and mom, and happily married. I mean, these people are like on a whole other level. Okay, it's also a place where people are very collegial. Now, are there a lot of administrators? Yes. Are there a lot of beautiful lawns and palm trees? Also, yes. But I'll tell you the real strength of Stanford. You know this woman, this freestyle skier who ended up skiing for China in the...
Go.
Yeah, okay. She's Stanford. Okay, I will tell you, the real prize at Stanford is the students, right? Everyone who works there knows that the intellect of the students and the ingenuity of the students is what sets it apart. And again, there are other places. Now, the downside, doing research is very expensive, very expensive. And in the current NIH climate, one of the first things that happened when HHS got revised, and I was very bullish about pushing back on this, is they wanted to cut the indirect cost, the support of the university, not just the labs, to 15% across the country. That would devastate science across the country. Now you could say, oh, well, Stanford's got this massive endowment, it's as big as a country, same with Harvard, why don't they pull from there? Okay, let's just take that argument and say 15% would take the University of Utah's, which is a fantastic place for biomedical research and many other things, the UT Austins, the Wisconsins, the WashUs, and it would demolish them. Fortunately, that cut didn't happen. And I'm very happy to say, and I take no credit for this, but I've been very vocal on the phone and elsewhere, getting in Jay's ear and other people's ear. You cannot cut the federal budget for research in this country. It fuels companies. It fuels basically the healthcare exploration and development for the entire world. And they just put a 1% increase on the budget. Now, I think that's too small, but the problem that I have with big institutions, rich institutions like Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Caltech, now here's the other piece of it, is that 30% of the indirect money, meaning the additional funds that come from NIH, go to a very small subset of universities across the country for big facilities, genomics facilities, proteomic facilities, which means that the laboratories there have what many people view as a bit of an unfair advantage. Okay, so if we really wanted to equally distribute intellectual growth and we want to equally distribute scientific growth, we would distribute that money more equally across the country. Now, my colleagues at Stanford are going to hate me for saying this, but it's kind of weird, right? I mean, if you're at the University of Colorado Boulder and you're a graduate student, shouldn't you have the opportunity to do the most cutting edge experiments there? And not, just because you're not at Stanford, you shouldn't be hindered. So I think
a lot of the country feels left out.
Yeah, and I think the redistribution of some of these funds would be good.
It would be helpful.
It would be
helpful. A lot
helpful.
of the country feels like all the cool jobs are in a few different places, and they kind of look down on us. And we're not all hicks out here, you know. I think something like this would go a long way. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the University of Boulder is like, but you know, I've been to Boulder. I played the city. It's not a bunch of fucking hicks.
No,
it's very liberal.
Great place.
Very liberal.
Great place. Great science. Yeah. I mean, they had some unfortunate incidents there. I think there was like some sort of pseudo-terrorist attack.
No.
Someone threw a Molotov cocktail or something at some protester. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, Boulder seems like a nice little peaceful town.
I think it was the place where the Batman, he dressed as the Joker or Batman or something. This is like 2013. I remember because I played the city like a couple of months after it was in a theater. It was a shooting. It was a mass
I know what you're
shooting.
trying. That's right. I know what you're referring to.
And
yeah. I think that was I'm thinking of a separate incident, a more recent incident that was related to a public protest.
No, I remember because I donated the proceeds from the weekend in Colorado to that fund.
I know.
It was
there was one at University of Virginia as well.
It would have looked bad not to.
Or Virginia Tech.
But it was.
Redistribution of resources across the country would be Great. And so I talked to Jay about this today, and he said that one of the initiatives is to start creating national centers that get a large percentage of funding so that scientists and people running clinical studies from anywhere in the country can go there and use the state-of-the-art tools to be able to do their experiments anywhere. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that that's going to ruffle some feathers at some of the, let's say, wealthier institutions. But endowments are very, are thick at certain places, right? There's a lot of money sitting in the endowments of these places.
No, and as you say, I think it's important for people to know that some of the stuff that, and I agree with you that they shouldn't cut any of this money, it hasn't happened. People come up to me all the time when I'm out, and Bill, what are we going to do? Like their world is coming to an end, which it's not. And I was just saying the Supreme Court stopped the president from his tariff thing. I'm sure you saw that. That was a kind of a big one that the Supreme Court, including two of his appointees, said, no, I'm sorry, we'll give you a lot, but we're not going to give you this. Thousands of cases of local courts have pushed back on detaining immigrants, and the budget that he asked for never got. It's basically the same down the line as it was the year before he took office. So for people to think the sky is falling, it's not quite falling. Yeah. There still is a system that we have it's definitely taking a stress test we've never had before, but it's sort of holding in this way, and this is part of it. Like that money is still there.
Yeah,
this is still America, and we're still, do you think we're the leading edge in scientific research?
Holding in there with some other top places, like in Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia. And I will tell you, China is, in terms of brain-machine interface, inserting chips into the brain of non-human primates and humans to do, increasing memory, novel ways of using AI for cognition. They are miles ahead of us.
What do you mean non-human primates? Apes?
Macaque monkeys is the typical model. Very hard to do that work in the United States because it's very expensive and it's dangerous. Macaque monkeys carry something called, it's a form of herpes that kills humans. They get a cold sore. People have died from this. There was a woman in Atlanta had some monkey.
How do you get a cold sore from a monkey?
Well, no, the monkey splashed urine in her eye, and so it's it was deadly. She was dead within a couple of weeks.
Is that right?
Yeah. So years ago,
not that it's going to really affect my personal life, but which monkey is this?
The macaque monkey.
The macaque monkey. Oh,
macaque
then
monkey.
I'm totally
the big
sick.
ones with big teeth.
No.
Yeah.
I fucked some chimps, but this is not okay.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So
that's
so China is making strides. Switzerland shut down non-human primate research, as far as I know. It's very expensive to do in the U.S. The National Primate Centers used to be a big piece of research in this country for everything. The development of birth control was tested in non-human primates. They're the closest model to us. Now, I have to say, I'm not saying this to protect myself. I'm saying this because I truly feel, I think the need for justification to do work on non-human primates has to be very high. They are very much like us. I've interacted with these animals a lot.
Does it hurt them when they do it?
Yes.
It does.
They do what they can to minimize pain, but it absolutely does. I mean, having a stereotax implanted in the head, injections into the eye, there's no way to do that completely painlessly. And, that's tough. It wears on the soul, I will tell you, to do that work.
I'm Peter.
Yeah,
bro.
I'm right. So I am. I personally couldn't do that work. Years ago, I've worked on a bunch of different species, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing now is I hated working on animal models. But in many cases, animal models are what we have. But again, non-human primates, we need a very, very, very high justification and threshold before one would want to invest in doing that kind of work. As long as
what are we going to get out of it that's worth it?
Yeah, so I think, okay, well, you're asking me to justify something for which I'm a little bit...
No, I'm not asking you to justify it. I'm just saying, what in the best possible scenario would we get out of it where someone down the road could make the case and say, yes, I'm sorry the monkey suffered, but now, 8 million, children with Tourette's syndrome are free of this curse.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the extent to which you believe that going from mouse to human is a reasonable jump. It's been the intermediate species. It's either been mouse to pig to human or mouse to non-human primate to human for, dose lethality, infectious disease, I mean, they are very similar to us. I'll tell you, I'm very happy to not work on non-human primates. They are sentient, as are dogs, in my belief, and it's a really tough problem. I think one of the challenges is that now there's a lot of excitement about AI, and I think you can do a lot with AI that they couldn't do a few years ago. But cells, as you were pointing out earlier, are the foundational building block of all organs and health. And oftentimes, to understand human health, you have to understand it in a model system that's similar. Let me give you an example. This is, as long as we're staying edgy. There's something new that's being done in Mexico and in Europe called three-party IVF. It's illegal here. It's actually being done in the UK.
I think I had one here.
So we know that
only one of them was Mexican. But
we know that as women age, the number of sort of eggs that can be successfully fertilized and create healthy humans goes down with age. We know this, right? So one of the things that makes it harder as women get older is the mitochondrial genes that control some of the splitting of the egg and the formation of more cells, et cetera. Turns out that people figured this out first in mice and then in non-human primates, that you can take the DNA from the woman who wants to be the mom, the sperm from the guy that wants to be the dad, and you can take those and put them into an egg from a younger donor where the DNA has been taken out, but the spindle and the things that pull it across with the mitochondrial genes are intact. And you can end up with a healthy kid. How do we know this? Because there are women who have mitochondrial genetic diseases. This was done in the UK. And all your mitochondrial genes come from your mom. And so these people wanted to have kids. So someone said, hey, maybe you could do this. So they did it first in mice, then in non-human primates. And now in Mexico and elsewhere around the world, people who are having trouble conceiving or by standard IVF are starting to do this three-party IVF. It's not yet legal in the United States. But this is a good example where it went from mouse to non-human primate to human. So you would say, gosh, would you want to go from mouse to human? Like, that's a pretty big jump. So at the same time, we're not macaque monkeys. They're not identical to us, obviously. So it's the way the fields have progressed. And in terms of cognition and things like that. But again, I'm not arguing that more work should be done in non-human primates. I'm not making that argument. I think whenever possible, we should avoid the use of animal models. Always, right? Why injure or take a life when you potentially don't have to?
But when you say whenever possible.
Yeah, I mean, there are cancer treatments that I doubt humans, unless they're dying and they're really at the end of life.
No, it's just saying, I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Is whenever possible. Of course, I think everyone would say whenever possible.
Right.
Or most people.
Yeah. And in this country, we don't tend to have cat and dog research anymore, largely because of the advocacy groups.
Because we like them, because they're our pets.
Yeah. And at the same time, pig people tell me pigs are very sweet.
They do.
I don't know.
But they're not our pets, so we throw them under the bus. They're bacon.
And China's different. China treats, I think they treat this whole landscape of animal research very differently. They have a lot of researchers in Europe keep their primates in China because of the lower costs and do the work there. I mean, we're sort of going into the future of brain-machine interface and kind of where that is. And yes, China is really a kind of a hot seat for that.
But why do we have to use animals? Why can't we just use humans that nobody likes, like, Klansmen or, guys who are on Epstein Island?
Well,
something like that. I mean, they're
so that's how they should settle the
Well,
Epstein.
of course, because they're human. It's going to be better research anyway.
Oh my goodness, those files. I couldn't help but go into those files, and I was able to find examples of people saying, you can find this there, saying, too bad we can't experiment on kids, or we should experiment on kids. It's in those files.
Experiment what on kids? What are you
they just are talking about wanting to do experiments on children.
Who is?
In the files.
But who? Which people?
Oh, okay. So
Bill Gates?
You really want to go down this rabbit hole?
I'm fucking curious.
All right, it's all on the DOJ site.
Okay, yeah.
So,
but what?
So here's what I think is
not Deepak.
Deepak? No, I don't think so. No.
Oh, I think that's the worst because he always was like, "Oh, I'm the spiritual man. I'm the healer. I will tell you, you are part of the universe. Yeah, part of the universe that went to Epstein Island, and I mean his shit. Just, I mean, I like him. He's been
I've
here
never
once.
met him. I've never.
Okay,
I'm proud to say I've never met him.
He's a sweet guy, but you know, it was always a Halloween costume, and I'm not that sorry that it got the mask got torn off. I mean, it just look. I'm not a person who's big on, you know, like people who say they're spiritual leaders anyway. So like, you know, his thing was always I was winking, and I always felt he was kind of winking back, like you and I both know I'm selling a book, okay, you know, like that kind of thing, and it's the same book like 45 times.
Yeah, that's weird when people publish the same book over and over. That's just because, what is that?
It's because people want to be reaffirmed of what the sunken cost fallacy. You know what that is.
Sure.
That, you know, like you say you believe the gypsy who's been telling you that, you know, to give all your money to this person, and you already out $1 million. You can't turn back on it now, even though something in your mind is telling you this is not right. But it's sunken cost fallacy. You just keep going with it. I think that's what it is.
You're talking about the customers or the people who write these things? That
the customers.
Yeah.
I mean, for the people who write them, it's just a gravy train. But for the customers, yes, it's like, you know, the latest version of, yes, it's the same book over and over, but it's telling them, it's comforting to hear what you already think you know and believe and is helping you, even though there's probably a mountain of evidence that it's not. Or maybe it does, because the human mind is an amazing place that can convince itself of anything, and a lot of success in life. Somebody once said it 1,000,000 years ago, if you think you're happy, you're happy. Are you happy?
I am happy.
Right now?
Yeah, I'm happy. I equate being peaceful and being happy very similar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why if you're not happy, then you have big fucking problems. I mean, you're doing well, you're well liked, you're popular, you're a huge success. You know,
I mean,
you're
I have my
prime of life.
internal storms like anyone else, where you know, I see things out in the world that frustrate me, but then I remind myself, you know, I'm striving and I'm, you know.
Yes, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, I feel, between the top half of the country that is doing well. Mm-hmm. You know, not the people who are working 3 jobs and paycheck to paycheck, but the ones who come up to me and say, Bill, what are we going to do?
Well, because
it's just a dissonance between like their world, which is fucking awesome. And I look, even if your world is awesome, I'm not saying you're wrong to be worried about the state of the country. Absolutely. I'm in the boat with you there. I am. But I also don't lose sight of the fact that my own world, no, I'm not on the edge of madness every day. And maybe we'll get there, but we're not. So let's not pretend we are. Let's not pretend, what are we going to do? Go finish your dinner. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, I think that the numbing out and the rage that the internet offers are incredibly intoxicating for people. I think, you know, to go online is to either forget what you would otherwise be surrounded by.
It's what every algorithm is built on,
is
it
is
not?
Built on that.
It's
and I think
built on hate and rage and conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Epstein files, to me, are an interesting... I think people are going to be talking about this 100 years from now. I think it's going to be...
Wow,
because
really?
I think it's... Well, I'll say a couple things. First of all, I never met him, never interacted with him, never corresponded with him, you know, and thrilled about that.
Makes 2 of us.
Yeah, great. You know, nice. Thank you. Once again, thank you.
We'll start our own
you know,
club.
he had deep pause in the scientific community.
Yes.
And in media.
Every community.
In every community. I'm very happy to know that, you know, no one at Stanford was taking money from him. That's great. Actually, I remember in 2017 when that case kind of first broke, and I'm in touch with our development, our fundraising office all the time, and I said, please tell me that he's not funding labs here. They said, no, he approached us. We gave him the cold shoulder. You know, they vet very carefully, which is what MIT didn't do. It's what Harvard didn't do. It's what Columbia didn't do. I mean, I consider him a colleague only because he's in the field of neuroscience, right? But Richard Axel won the Nobel Prize for discovering the molecular basis of olfaction. He shared it with Linda Buck in 2004, and he had to step down as the director of the Columbia Neurosciences Institute today.
You got this off YouTube?
No, I got this off
I'm just...
So, you know,
don't take me so seriously.
Okay, well, I'll try not to.
You're going to have to learn to sit here.
I mean, he was
a
pillar of our field, and to learn that he was, you know, buddy with Epstein for so many years, and you know, I think that so here's one thing that's clear to me at the I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a human being with some degree of experience. And what I know is that if you're in touch with your gut sense, if you're around a guy like Epstein, you should want to get out of there. So the fact that people now I understand how some people were manipulated by him because they were too young or whatever to be able to navigate that. But why anyone, especially these supposed high IQ folks, would actively seek him out and try to, embed themselves in his
Well, I can
world?
answer that question.
Omnipotence.
But before I do, who are you going to tell me about?
Richard Axel.
Is that who you were talking about?
Oh, before?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that wasn't what I was going to tell you about.
Well, tell me.
Okay, so I've looked at this thing very carefully now because you and I are in the business of media. So here's the question that I think has not been explored thoroughly enough. Why is it that in 2008, Epstein was convicted, then comes back to New York? I mean, he's still traveling all over the place. And people continue to engage with this guy. Like, people seek him out. People are taking funding from him. And yes, I got it. He wore the Harvard sweatshirt, which doesn't mean shit at all, by the way. Anyone can buy that anywhere.
I can tell you why.
Why?
He's a pimp. I can't believe I have to explain this to everybody. He's a pimp, okay? There are people in this world, a lot of them, who are very achievement-oriented, shall we say, and successful in their field, which is either science or finance, who have zero clue how to get a female human into bed.
Oh, so you think these guys were just too dweeby to get laid?
Correct. He's a guy, like any pimp, who can just get, I don't know what it is. I don't possess it. I don't want to possess it. It's horrible if you do it. But he could get all these women, and you look at the emails. It's in the emails.
I mean, some of them
They were
were
saying
certifiably dweeby.
Well,
guys.
they're saying things like, Richard Branson, hope I get to see you again, but, only if you're going to bring your harem.
So it's what he brought with him. I accept your hypothesis, but may I do a yes and?
Yes,
improv,
please.
Yes and?
Yeah, or you can disagree.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before publicly, actually, a couple years ago, before any of this popped. I was on Rogan, and we were talking about why scientists cozied up to Epstein, and he provided, either directly or by being the rabbi in certain introductions, enormous amounts of funding to certain places. Like, they're in the files, right? I mean, I'm not trying to dodge a lawsuit here. I mean, the Columbia Neuroscience Institute was not funded by Epstein, but there's a lot of record of sort of joint meetings around that, and people in the leadership from Columbia meeting with Epstein and the people who eventually gave the money. So here's the part that I don't know. Maybe I'm just too West Coast to understand this. But here's the thing.
What's that?
Well, it's just, this is a very New York story when you really think about it. He had the biggest real estate footprint. He had an island and all this shit. Like, honestly, I grew up in the South Bay. I'm impressed by people that have discovered things and done things, and creatives and things like that. Like, I get it. I understand Manhattan, where your real estate is, how big the real estate is. But for people otherwise intelligent people to blow past their understanding of his crimes, because that's what they were, against minors. Wait, hold on. This means something. I know. Let's just take the example of the person who's not there for the women, who's there for the money, because a lot of people made a lot of money for their pet projects, their research projects, their technology projects. I mean, the list of people that's in there, it doesn't look to me like they were all with him so they could get access to women. They wanted money. And I think what he offered people was a sense of omnipotence. He has an island that's separate. It was like a level above the level that he offered other people that turned out to be the level below everything else. And we're somehow shocked now that this happened. But I do think from 2010, this is what I was emphasizing before, from 2010 or so, until he was eventually arrested again and was standing trial before he was killed. It's so obvious he was killed and didn't kill himself. He was trying to be a member of the scientific community. I mean, there are interviews in there. He had a staff. He hired people. The guy who he hired, you want something interesting? The guy who he hired to redo his web presence, to kind of bury his sex offender status, was a guy named Al Seckel. I know because he came from the science community. He wasn't a neuroscientist, kind of a failed scientist. He ended up marrying Ghislaine Maxwell's sister. Guess what happened to Al Seckel in 2015? Found at the bottom of a cliff in France. No one knows what happened. Wild, right? The woman that eventually came out against Prince Andrew, right? Virginia Giuffre,
Told her so.
said at some point, if I die, it's not suicide. And then, quote unquote, killed herself. There are a lot of people that apparently off themselves or allegedly off themselves around this. And one of them was the guy who was in charge of his rebrand. Okay. So I completely agree with you. There were people that were dweeby.
But that's a different issue.
It's a different
which
issue.
I do not disagree with you.
No, I think these are yes ands. These are yes ands.
It very well could be that these deaths are legitimately suspicious.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have a lot to hide from.
Yeah.
But to the essential question, it's that no matter how big the big head is, you're right, some of the smartest people in the world, no matter how big the big head is, it's the little head that is going to this is the oldest maxim about men in history. You're thinking with the wrong head,
No,
and they will always do that.
But to the point of the part that makes no sense to me is overlooking whatever, but not to the point of overlooking the fact that he was a pedophile. It wasn't that he was caught with a prostitute.
That's morals. You think they fucking care about morals?
I guess.
First of all, they were able to justify it because when he came out of that, what they put out there, was that she was like 6 months below the legal age.
That's what was online. But that's not true.
Okay, but that's enough for them to believe.
Which is exactly the point.
Enough for them to tell themselves, I'm not really engaging with a true pedophile.
But how could they tell themselves that? I would argue it was his web presence, which was very orchestrated, right? To make him seem like a rich guy who had gotten into some trouble, came back to he had people actively working to build that persona. I've spent some time in these files, and I'll tell you, if his representation online had been closer to the reality, maybe I'm naive, but I like to think it would have been harder for him to pull so many people around him as layers of protection.
I would totally agree with that.
Okay, so we're in agreement.
Yeah, we're in agreement, but
But what about the other folks around him, like that visited his island that clearly do not fall into the category that you're talking about? I can't wrap my head around that.
Like who?
Well, I mean, Clinton supposedly spent time with him.
You gotta be kidding.
He supposedly spent time with him, right?
Who would ever think of him as
But he's not a dweeb, right?
No, but
or let's say
okay.
All right, as long as we're coming up with examples. I mean, you got to be really careful here.
I just think
some of the folks that sat down to dinners with him, right? Like, you couldn't pay me enough money to have a dinner with a guy where I had knowledge of that. Listen, I'm far from perfect. I'm not arguing that I'm perfect. I'm not trying to draw a distinction. And sure, I have
no one says you're perfect.
Right. I certainly am. I'm replete with flaws.
No one has been saying. No one has been saying.
For years,
that.
I said I'm replete with flaws. The problem is,
I like you,
but the problem is no one understood what replete meant.
No one's saying you're perfect.
So I'm certain, but I just don't see a world where people who are otherwise intelligent don't have this issue with not being able to get laid, as you refer to it, are sitting down with somebody who's a convicted criminal for something like that. I mean, pedophiles get killed in prison. I mean, Epstein killed himself. We know that. But other criminals kill pedophiles.
Dude, I explained it to you.
All right.
I mean, if you don't want to get it,
I get it. I get it. I guess maybe
I'm telling you that is exactly what it is.
All right.
That is exactly.
I trust your judgment.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
The urge in men like that, these nerdy guys who are like, I created 8 big companies, and I made $300 million last week, and no girl cares.
But some of these guys seem pretty happily
except
married.
for the money.
Beautiful women. Like some of the big tech giants are very happily
married. Yes,
Zuck seems happily married. I mean, Bezos is now happily married. I mean,
Bezos is newly married, and I agree.
Elon it seems to have, he's got a lot of baby mamas.
Elon is on the emails. First, he totally denied it, and he's caught being a huge liar. That's who Elon is in the emails. He's caught being a huge liar who said to the world, oh yeah, he tried to get me on his island and I was not interested. And then the email says, when can I get there? What night is the wildest party? You didn't see that one?
I missed that one.
I guess we read different emails.
I guess we read different.
Well, I mean,
I was spending time trying to understand the sort of trajectory of this as it related to the academic and scientific community and his media presence. But
people like that who have access to do anything tend to do it. My friend has this theory about shark soup. you're not supposed to have it. It's endangered, the sharks, but they make soup, and it's not supposed to be really good. But you know what? I can get it, and other people can't.
Wait, but I thought you're PETA. You're PETA.
I am.
Okay.
I'm not supporting this. I'm just saying people, that's what people, the point is that it's forbidden fruit. Well, and I'm a special person, so I'll indulge in that. But I'm saying the essence of this. They think of themselves, and they are so special in this many other ways, and yet in this fundamental human need. I mean, not to always be picking on Bill Gates, but obviously it was a sexless, passionless marriage at some point. Maybe not in the beginning. Most marriages become that. I know, horrible thing to say, but it's true. And at that point, men are just living lives of quiet desperation.
But men who cheat, and I'm not condoning cheating, or women who cheat, certainly not condoning cheating in either direction, they don't have to cheat with minors.
No,
I mean, that's the part that makes no fucking sense.
I don't think these guys were cheating with minors. I think Epstein had the minors. I think he introduced them to women who were masseuses or...
You think he was blackmailing them and keeping files on them?
That too, probably, yes.
There's this thing about the tiger with the camera eyes and all
even
that
if he didn't have it documented, they knew he knew.
All right. Can I, before we close, do we have to close on this? We're going to close on this?
No, I just want to say, I know there's a lot of, everybody wants you because you bring a lot of ratings. So it meant a lot to me that
really?
you would come here, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm delighted. I'm always happy.
There's a million things I was wanting to ask you about my own health, but
Well, I always learn from you, and seriously,
I appreciate it.
I really enjoy our conversations.
Oh,
and
we'll come back anytime.
I would love to. I'll tell you one thing about cannabis before we wrap. It's likely being rescheduled or has been rescheduled to Schedule 3, which means, I was told this today, which means that now it can be explored more thoroughly for potential therapeutic uses.
I've been exploring it for 45 years, and I'm telling you, it's fantastic. It doesn't, I mean, do you think...
Unless someone has a predisposition to psychosis, in which case it can be very dangerous.
Oh, for fuck's sake, yes, unless. I mean, do you think smoking like a joint every few days is gonna really hurt me? I mean,
No. Yeah. The kid with a predisposition to schizophrenia, yes.
Okay, well, okay, I'll keep it away from him.
Club Random.
Oh my!
That's a lot of fun.
All right. Well,
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Oh,
man, I got an education there.
I'm gonna
Oh my!
loosen you up, Andrew. Over the years.